We're here with Scott Gurney, assistant coach for the Shelby Lady Whippets. Being a former head coach, I know that the brains of the operation are the assistants. So,
Yeah.
so we're going to try to talk to you a little bit about. But Scott, I think the first thing that as I've done these interviews over the past couple of years, I think it's always interesting to kind of hear of the journey that each coach has taken. So maybe talk a little bit about where you went to high school, you graduate, college, and then how you got to this position here that you are right now at Shelby High School.
So journey a little bit, not different. I went to Shelby, played football and basketball. My favorite sport was, look at you or him? Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
My favorite sport growing up was basketball. Unfortunately, God didn't truly gift me with a lot of skills in hoops, so football ended up being my best sport. We're successful, halfway successful in both. Went to Ashland, played football for 4 years. Ended up going to grad school to become an engineer. Decided I didn't want to do that, so I ended up teaching. Got lucky because one of my good football buddies from Ashland, Dan Weber, who was all Ohio in both sports and everything down in Loudonville, got me a job down there. So kind of my journey of teaching, my first 6 years was in Loudonville. Went down there primarily to coach football, was their defensive coordinator right away, kind of put in some of the schemes that we did in college. I think about my third year, the basketball coach knew I had played in high school, so he asked me to come coach the freshman boys. So I said yes. It was a good time for me to do that. My girls were young. I don't think even had a kid at that point. So started out, and it's kind of interesting because my first year coaching, and again, basketball was my favorite, but yet obviously my X and O expertise is in football. Was given a class of kids as freshmen that were not real highly successful in junior high. First game we played is Clear Fork, down at Clear Fork, and I got baptized by fire. So I think we were down 20-0 before I even figured out how to get past half court. And but that year, which I think my first year, I ended up, believe it or not, my only losing year ever. We were 3-14, but that year taught me everything I needed to know about basketball. It tends to be the aggressive team, especially defensively, wins, and then by getting beat by a lot of the things, you kind of cheat and steal that stuff. So coached 2 more years there with their boys. I think the second year we were 14-3, and then the third year we ended up being 17-0. So I do feel a little bit better because the team that did beat me, whatever, 20-0 before half, they did win the state title as seniors. So I feel a little bit better in the late 90s there. But then ended up coming to Shelby. Again, started out with football and only coached football. And we were, believe it or not, at a softball game. And I was complaining because the coaches that my daughters had, I didn't feel like were real good. So my wife, literally, who doesn't say much but is point blank honest, says, "Why don't you coach them?" I said, "What do you mean? I'm a football coach. I'm not a softball, basketball coach." She goes, "Why don't you give it up and coach your girls?" So that's what I did. So I walked away from football for 4 or 5 years, coached them in softball, didn't know a thing about softball. I played baseball in school, but not a lot. So learned about that, coached them through. Then Coach Lance grabbed me when my oldest daughter was a 7th grader. She pulled me in and said, "Hey, you want to coach some middle school basketball?" So coached 3 years of middle school basketball, got to coach both of my girls through there. And then when my youngest was a freshman, she brought me up and I was a freshman girls coach for a year. And then it just worked out perfectly for me that, like, her longtime assistant, Winnie, decided to retire. So she was kind of stuck, I think. So she asked me, and I remember talking to her. And the thing I told Coach Lance, I don't know anything offensively. I'm always a defensive guy, but if you want me to help you with defense, I'm good football-wise with scouting reports. So she's took a chance on me, and it's like she's amazing to work with. She really is. She's always positive. She treats every kid, the top kid and worst kid, exactly the same. Like they're all stars. And this is our 7th year now, and hopefully win our 7th title in a row. And it's been fun. So that's kind of been my journey. I have the Coach Will and Coach Mahaney has pulled me back several times into football, so I've got to coach other than last year, all the really good teams with Armstrong and Marshall, Shepherd, and them. So I've got to coach football too. For a while I was coaching 3 sports, but now this coach with Coach Lance, and then I'm also the assistant softball coach.
Talk a little bit about, you mentioned football, been a big part. Any kind of carryover, like from coaching football to coaching girls basketball?
Well, it's unique because I think the first thing I had to figure out with girls, and Richard Hostetler kind of told me this in junior high football, if a kid does something wrong, I can get in their face, I can challenge their manhood, they're going to go hard for me. Basketball doesn't work like that with girls. So, I mean, you kind of, at least with girls, I think the biggest thing is you earn their respect. And if you earn their respect and they trust you, they run through a wall for you. But, I mean, the biggest thing for me, football is endless scouting and endless game plans. And that's kind of, I like doing the film breakdown and the defensive thing. So I think that's probably the biggest thing from that. And I mean, defensively, I was a linebacker, so I was defensive oriented, and the same thing here. So,
well, you might have already answered my next question. Was basically you look at programs around the area, around the state. Usually, programs that are successful, they have stability with their staffs. You've been, you said 7 years now as an assistant coach in junior high before that. So you've already maybe mentioned it, but like, what are some of the responsibilities that you take as an assistant that kind of takes stuff off of Coach Lance's plate?
I mean, Coach Lance is everywhere doing everything. So we both watch film. I tend to write up the scouting reports all the time. I'm in charge. I do all the stats, enter all the stats in for her. She's kind of more of the, all right, here's teacher appreciation, and we're going to do these nights. Gurn, can you get the forms ready? Can you? So I do some of the paperwork for her, but I tend to write up the game plans. And that's pretty much it.
And you've been a part of some coaching, part of some special teams here over the last few years at Shelby.
Yes.
You guys are currently 12-1. Your only loss is to a perennial Division I program in Reynoldsburg, they've been outstanding. I think you lost by 4. As you look at this team you have 8 seniors. As you look at this team, kind of what makes this team maybe kind of special this year?
Well, it's kind of a unique class because they're somewhat quiet. They're not a rah-rah group. I mean, we go in, coach will say, "Are you ready?" It's kind of quiet, which I know for this group, it's ready. This group's special because, golly, we had 30 some of them try out in 7th grade. Wow. I mean, 8 of them are still left. They get along well together. They have fun together for the most part. I mean, you always have certain girls, hang out with certain girls, but like this group, I mean, they're amazing. They get along together. We never have little girl issues, I guess you could say. This girl says this, they want to win. It's a common goal. They kind of each know what their role is. Some obviously are more than others, but each are important to us to try to win our 7th title.
And I think one of the things as a coach, I look at my career, I look back and I'm like, there's a lot of people that have influenced my coaching, from my high school coach to 2 guys that coached, within college, and then, coaching against guys in this area, and then, studied certain coaches. Like in your coaching career, have you ever had a coach or a coach that you really have studied or really kind of liked a lot of the things that they have done?
Yeah, I mean, like in high school, I think the 2 coaches that come to my mind, my head football coach was Ron Stepsis, one of the nicest guys you could ever be around. He's never going to say a bad word or a foul word or anything. I mean, we played hard for him. Gary Dvorak, he was my defensive coach and linebacker coach. So, I mean, tremendous XO guy, make sure I was ready to go. I mean, and then like here, I mean, obviously Coach Lance, huge influence on me just in terms of how to treat people. Because, I mean, it's easy to treat the stars well, but like I said, I think one of the biggest things with her, she treats every kid exactly the same, and they're all good. So treating somebody well is never a bad thing. Yep. I mean, and one other coach, Jeff Kurtzman, who was a tennis coach here, football coach here, just a good Christian guy. it was fun coaching with him, and kind of when he stepped away from football, it was kind of time for me to step by. But I would say those are the ones that influenced me the most.
Over all the years of coaching, what's your favorite part of coaching?
I'm a defensive guy, so when you put a scout together defensively, I mean, I go back to when she was kind of interviewing me to see if we would be a match or not. And we had just finished, it had been my oldest daughter's junior year. We finished 9-14 or 9-15. Second most points scored in school history. So we both kind of looked into that. If we don't put an emphasis on defense, we're never going to win any championships. So, like you said, this senior class, the kids before our tradition, to get on the floor, you got to play defense. So, I don't know if I answered your question.
No. Flip it around though. Is there a least favorite part of coaching?
Least favorite part of coaching. I mean, sometimes hoops can be kind of a grind. Like we had a little stint where we played 6 games in 12 days. Yep. That's a lot of scouting reports. Yep. That's a lot of film work. I don't know what to do now because we play 2 games in a week. I got like unlimited time, but
yeah, it does. It could, well, and especially here in the month of January.
And I'll be honest, like I said, football is my forte, but basketball is so fast. I mean, I think that's the first thing I learned. Like when I coached at Loudonville, football, call a play, get time to think, react. Call a play. Hoops is. So, I mean, I definitely enjoy hoops better in terms of it's fast. You can make quick adjustments. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. You can dictate a lot what the other opponent does. So.
All right. So if I see Shelby gives up 60, I'm not going to yell at Natalie. I'm going to yell at you. So,
Correct.
So, hey, really appreciate you taking the time
Thanks,
to
guys.
talk to us, and we wish you guys the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, yeah.
Have a good one.